give me another one of those. Now Saturday I'm gonna have
to go there. Texas is the best, the other best place to live.
Well, we married in Maui. And put a thing on that possibility of
Well, there you go. We used to go to Maui every year. My father-in-law, that was his favorite place to go to. And so we would go every year. And singing this morning, and then liquor dinner tomorrow, or the Reagan dinner tomorrow. So how have y'all been? We have been. We've been. Yeah, we've been. A lot of events. She's been singing a bunch here lately, so it's just been crazy. I'm ready to settle down. This one, I got this one. I just got this one the other day. But are y'all gonna be at the dinner tomorrow? We did a new song, but we did a CPAC song. So we did some bumper music for them. They didn't get it in time to do it to start off this, but they're going to do it for the dinner tomorrow. The bumper music's like right before it's fixing to start. This will be the countdown, and so we did that for them, and then we wrote a song for CPAC. So she's gonna do it tomorrow for the dinner, and we'll have the video. We just got the video back yesterday, so it's gonna be fun. Bumper music is like 30 to 60 second intro, and what we did is kind of they never want you to. We kind of did a clever way with ACDC's Thunderstruck. You know how it starts building up and they say thunder? We go, and then at the very end it goes, and then that would end, and then the woman, the voice of God, would come up and say, "Hey, did you see that 2025? Those are the that's what they'll end up doing." So, yes. Any designs, any guns? How was How was the gun show in Vegas? I was going to go.
How's it going? You're a good friend. Are we lucky? Yeah.
Goes with a gun on the side. I know. I mean, that's where I'm getting a bunch of them. I'm in we're right outside there.
I love it.
Hey, let me know. I'll kick in about 50 gallons. That's what I can afford on that lane.
Adiós y a...
Go meet her 'cause she's got interviews, so I got to go with her for an interview.
Saint Street.
thought about that, and I was like, I just got a couple that they're good. The ones I got, I like them. But yeah, they wanted to talk to Tommy about it. How to advertise. I mean, like it's supposed to be. There's not too many women that are pro guns, that love to shoot guns and all that. So it's one of those that like. Well, I also like to be part of sinking back here and deal with that.
Yeah, we would be very
We're going to do something like that. I'd rather get her in something that get with a company that we don't have to worry about.
He had very
Yeah, Staccato out of Austin. But yeah, there's something like that.
the other way around. And they didn't do the job alone. Because it seems that Americans come and take over completely Europe, telling them what to do because they are
Right. Let them know if they need a spokesgirl. That's a singer that.
Yeah, I mean, that may be what it felt like, but it's also true that
Promote them. They probably don't need a lot of promoting on them, but still, there's not a lot of females in the gun market. Tough women that get out there and shoot. Not a lot. A lot of guys. Very few women. You talk to them if they need.
They're very self vision. They only look at their own votes. They don't see the big vision.
Good morning, CPAC. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Carol Adams, and remain standing for the national anthem, performed by Natasha Owens.
Good morning and welcome to CPAC. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance to our great country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the God bless you and God bless America.
Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Pastor Joshua Neverett with today's invocation.
Before I begin to pray, I just want to say that we are living in the greatest time of our era, the golden age. And I want to thank God for the greatest president of our lifetime, President Donald J. Trump. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you for this great and victorious event at CPAC. We want to thank you for the leadership at CPAC, Matt and Mercedes Schlapp, because you've allowed them to lead a great organization with American patriots. And we want to thank you for America, the greatest nation of our lifetime. And because of you, Lord, we've turned our eyes and sought your face and your righteousness. And now we are blessed with the golden age. But we ask you that you bless America, bless our people, and bless our allies. And we pray, God, for a victorious event over the next 4 days, that it be a safe event. As we strategize and we look upon the heavens, that you find favor over us, Lord, and you continue to bless America. Lord, we ask you that you protect our president and the vice president and all of leadership, and that you put favor over America. We ask you these things in the name that's above every name, that every knee shall bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. In your precious name we pray, amen.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to CPAC 2025. America is back on track. Please welcome CPAC Senior Fellow Mercedes Schlapp and CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp.
Pretty cool.
All right, come on. I can't hear you.
There must be someone real special about to get on stage, right, Matt?
We have some seats open here. Let's go. Pack it in, folks. We got some red seats open here.
They're moving.
What do you think about CPAC 2025? Are you glad that America is back on track? Has it been a long, tedious 4 years? Are you ready to tell the whole world that America is ready to be America again? We have some announcements and some news.
There's so much going on. We have a very special guest who's going to be here during the conference. Kind of like a tech titan, maybe. Responsible for Doge. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, because thank God we're back to 2 genders. Elon Musk will be here on the CPAC stage. We just launched yesterday with the CPAC International Summit, where we had several key members representing from different countries with their delegations, where we passed 3 resolutions, Matt.
That's right.
Do you want to share what we did there?
Yeah, we passed 3 resolutions in support with one of America's greatest ally, the state of Israel. We were both saddened and honored to be joined by the families of those who have friends and family members as hostages by the evil Hamas.
And we have 2 of the hostages that were freed joining us today, and I believe they're here, right here with us.
God bless you.
America stands with you, America stands with Israel, and we will ensure that Hamas is eradicated. We will bring peace to the Middle East under President Trump. And then the second resolution.
It's hard for me to get over that, because that's just, thank you for being here. You honor us with your presence and your courage and your strength. And we have a president now in the United States of America that will not only help your loved ones, he's going to make it so that there aren't future victims, which we have to make sure we prevent. So thank you. Gordon Chang wrote a very important resolution. By the way, these resolutions were supported by all the nations that were assembled at our second annual CPAC International Summit. We are working not as government entities, but as entities outside government to push for these policies. And Gordon Chang wrote a very important resolution to combat the Chinese regime, the communist regime in China. And I want all of these despots and dictators to know that Donald Trump might talk to you. He might make you feel like you're welcome because that's part of his job. But in the end, we have a president that's going to stop you cold in your tracks. And all of these countries accepted that resolution as well. And perhaps my favorite resolution, I wish I had it here and could read to you on my phone, but I think I have the gist of it, which is we have a message to the globalists. Last year, Mercy and I stood on this stage and we said globalism, at CPAC, globalism was going to die. I thought that was an audacious statement. I thought we'd just say it, right, Jerry? Let's just say it. And then it happened. It's kind of amazing. And so our message to the globalists is, no matter whether you're at the World Economic Forum, the WHO, the EU, you can boo at any time, the UN, no matter who is trying to tell you as a mom or a dad, as a church member, as a teacher, as a cop, no matter who is trying to tell you what pronouns you should use, how you should pray to your God, how much you believe your country is racist, all that's over. And a part of that is, and this is a great way to start, we just had Natasha out here and the great pastor from Arizona who was with us on the campaign trail in Arizona. Part of that is, can we all just thank God for giving us a president?
Amen.
Who knows how to lead. And I'll expand that to a great young vice president who knows how to lead. All these resolutions passed. I don't know how CPAC became a global brand fighting the globalists with people here from like every country all over the world, but let's go with it because it seems to be working just fine.
And I want to leave you with this. You are the reason because President Trump is in the White House today. All of you, each and every one of you, fought hard, stood up, shared this incredible, optimistic message that we need to save America and, in essence, save the world. So I want to thank you all personally from the bottom of our hearts as being part of this incredible CPAC family, because you all have made the difference in this past election.
It's the truth.
So we honor you. We appreciate you so much.
So, we've talked long enough.
Yes,
Let's get this
let's
show on
get
the road.
going.
I think you have someone big that you want to announce
All right,
that's coming out
okay.
here. Good luck. I'll be in the wings making sure you do a good job.
Okay, Dad. All right, all right. All right, gang, are you all ready? Okay. So, there's this young guy, with this beautiful family, with this beautiful wife that is actually just a shining star right now in American politics. Marine veteran, former Ohio senator, one of the coolest guys I think we have around, and one of the best communicators in this Trump administration. Can you please let us applaud together, let us welcome the greatest Vice President of America, J.D. Vance.
What's up, guys? How we doing? Hey, how are you? You too. Thanks for doing this. Thank you. Thank you.
USA!
Thank you all. Thank you. It's great to be with you. It's good to see you.
It is great to see you too. I mean, you've been like on a whirlwind here.
Yeah.
Are you a little jet lagged or no?
You know, yes, I am a
Okay.
little jet lagged. So we did a trip where we went to France and then to Germany, and then we went to San Diego for a family wedding, and then back in DC, and we did all that in like 7 days. So
Okay.
a little jet lagged, but that's okay.
Well,
I'm in a good place right now, Mercedes.
Well, you know
I got
what?
some sleep last night.
Okay, good. Then we're ready. We're ready. But it's a real special day today. You know what today is, guys? It's February 20th. That means our first 30 days, the happy one-month anniversary of the Trump-Vance administration. I mean, how exciting is that?
It's very exciting. It's hard to believe we've only been in office for a month, because I think we've done more in a month than Biden did in about 4 years.
Yeah.
And thank God for that. But, you know, the president keeps us on a pretty breakneck pace. He always asks, what have we done today? What are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do next week? Because I think he realizes this is a special moment in time. And by the way, thank you. Thanks to all of you for making it possible for us to do all the great work we've been doing in the administration. I know we wouldn't have been here without you, but I think the president is acutely aware that the American people gave us a window to save the country, and that's exactly what we're going to do, and thank God for that, because it's been a hell of a lot of fun the past month.
Okay, so I don't even think we can keep track of all the things you all are doing. In
been a lot.
fact, I don't even
Been a lot.
think the press can keep track of all they're doing. I mean, they talk about the shock and awe strategy. Seriously. So when you're looking at this list after list after list, what stands out to you?
Well, speaking of the press, I do think that we've had maybe more executive orders than CNN has viewers each night. So hello to our friends at CNN. I actually think that their plan was they were going to go all in on anti-Trump and hope that he could save CNN in the same way that he did, frankly, in 2017, because nobody really watched the network until he became president in 2017. But that's maybe the one thing I think the president has been unable to do, unable to save the CNN's ratings over the last few months. But look, I think that what the president has tried to do is recognize that we have a historical mandate on a few issues. We have to secure the southern border, and thanks to his actions, border crossings are down well over 90%, and we're just getting started. He recognizes that we have to really unlock the engine of American growth. We've got to get back to having a growing economy that creates good jobs and high wages for the American people. And a lot of that goes back to drill, baby, drill. We've done more on energy under President Trump's leadership than I think any administration in history, and that's not an exaggeration. And of course, we're going to do more. And then I think the third thing that he's tried to do, of course, with the help of Elon and all the great folks at Doge, is ask, what are we doing with all of the American taxpayers' money, and why are we wasting so much of it on garbage that the American people either aren't aware that we're spending it on or don't want to be spending it on in the first place?
Right.
Like, for example, the stuff that we've figured out, Mercedes, is unbelievable. Why are we spending money on progressive modern art projects centered around toilets in Afghanistan? That's actually something that your tax dollars were funding until very recently. And I think all of us are sitting around and asking, what the hell have we been doing with the American people's money for the last 4 years? Let's turn off the spigot and spend the American people's tax money on the American people's priority. And that's, of course, been a big focus of the administration, too.
Let's dig deeper into the immigration issue.
Sure.
We've seen, and you've met many of the victims, people who have family members who have died,
Yes.
have been tragically murdered. Those angel families in the hands of these criminal illegal aliens.
Sure.
What's your message to these families? What is your message to these horrific drug cartels and human traffickers who have preyed on the most vulnerable in the world?
Well, our message to the drug traffickers is get the hell out of our country. Your free ride is over because President Trump is back in the Oval Office. That is, you're not welcome You were never welcome, according to the American people, but unfortunately you had President Joe Biden, who allows you to run free over the United States of America, and Donald Trump has said, you're terrorist organizations, we're gonna go after you, we're gonna wage war on you, and certainly we want you out of the United States of America, and that's an important message, of course. But our message, and you know this, Mercedes, our message to the families is President Trump cares about you. He thinks that it's disgraceful what your own government let happen to your children, to your grandchildren, and it's got to stop. And of course, we mourn with people, we pray for people, but we're also asking, as their government, why did this happen to your child in the first place? And the answer is that under Joe Biden, your government didn't do its job. Under Donald Trump, it is. Thank God for that.
On the economy, and I'm getting this question all the time, you know, it's this question of affordability, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stress on our families, something that I think Joe Biden could not manage in terms of really helping lower that cost of living and making things just simply more affordable.
Sure.
We talked about energy independence being a critical component of this, of ensuring that we unleash this economic prosperity. What more needs to be done?
Yeah, so one of the first interviews I did, it was, I think 6 or 7 days after the inauguration, and somebody asked me, well, it's been 6 days, what have you guys done to fix the inflation crisis created by Joe Biden? I'm like, well, first of all, it's been 6 days, we've done a lot in 6 days, but it's gonna take some time to fix what Joe Biden broke over 4 years. And we know it is easy, unfortunately, to burn the house down. It takes a little bit of time to build it back up. And here's what we have to do. Because look, the fundamental goal of our immigration policy, of our border policy, of DOGE saving taxpayer money, the fundamental goal is we want your children and grandchildren to be able to raise a family in security and comfort in the country that we all love. That is the whole goal of President Trump's agenda. Like, safety and prosperity, right? Yeah. It's pretty common sense stuff. And we know that to do that, we have to first of all unleash American energy. Now, why is that so important? Because look, if, you know, we all know grocery prices got too high under Joe Biden's leadership. Well, one of the main drivers of groceries is energy. Because if the farmers are paying more for energy, then we're all paying more for what the farmers grow. And if the truck drivers who are delivering the groceries are paying more for fuel, then we're all paying more for what the truck drivers are delivering to the grocery store. If we unleash American energy, that will do more than anything to drive down the cost for the American people. The second thing, Mercedes, is we have got to stop spending the American people's money on garbage. Every dollar that we take in and spend, you have to pay for, either through taxes or through inflation. And if we spend the American people's money more wisely, if we stop taxing and spending the American people to death, that's also going to bring relief to all of the pricing pressures that are out there. We're going to make it affordable to live in this country again. That's our mandate, that's our goal. And you're right, there's a lot more that we can do, but I think we've got a pretty good start after 30 days.
We've got a pretty good start. But we've got this big, beautiful one-bill budget reconciliation scenario. How is that working? What are the dynamics that are happening right now in Congress and what the administration is doing to ensure that a lot of what the president is wanting to do in terms of really pushing forward with economic prosperity and his tax relief initiatives gets done in these bills?
Sure. Yeah, it's really important. So the Senate obviously has its own approach, and the president has been very clear that his preference is to put everything in one bill.
Right.
And part of that is just simple legislative strategy. I think the president has learned a lot about how DC works. And I actually talked to the president about this yesterday, and he said to me, look, it's very rare that you can get 2 reconciliation bills done in one Congress, which is why he thinks we've got to do a lot with that one big, beautiful bill, that first reconciliation package that we're going to get through the House and the Senate. It's going well. It's early, right? This stuff takes time to put together. I think, you know, if you had a record pace reconciliation bill, we would get this thing done in May or in June. I think we're on track to do that, but we've got to do some basic things, Mercedes. One, like I said, we've got to continue to unleash American energy. That's part of the reconciliation bill. We've got to make sure that other countries stop taking advantage of us. That's a big part of President Trump's tariff policy, is we got to stop being taken advantage of. You know, of course, we want to make the President Trump tax cuts permanent and extend them into the future. We want no taxes on tips. We got to do some of the things we talked about during the campaign. That's got to be part of it. And then finally, and this is really important, everything the president has done on the border, we have got to empower him to do it, not just for a month, but for the next 4 years. And we've got to hire more Border Patrol agents. We got to give Tom Homan and Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem the resources they need to secure the border. And just not to return to the border, but I think so many of our issues come back to the border, because if you take 30, 40 million illegal aliens, you take Medicare fraud, Social Security fraud. Why are we taking the people's Social Security payments and giving it to illegal aliens? We know that's happening in the United States of America today. We've got to stop it. If you get control of the border, Mercedes, you do more to control the fiscal problem, the financial problems that we have in this country than almost anything. Get illegal aliens out of our country, make sure American tax dollars go to American people. That is how you solve the fiscal crisis in the United States of America.
Shifting to your incredible speech at the Munich conference. Did you all watch that? I don't know. I think they
I'm
really
glad you guys liked it. Not everybody liked it.
Okay.
You guys liked it.
Okay.
Not everybody liked it.
So,
Good to see you. Thank you.
okay.
I'll take a standing ovation for a speech I already gave.
That's
like
awesome.
two for the price of one.
Yeah, I was going to say, here's your speech to say it again. All right. But it was fascinating because there was obviously some of these European leaders that, you know, they were a little uptight about it. It stressed them out just a little bit.
A little bit.
But you talked about the greatest threats in Europe.
Yeah. So, look, the greatest threat in Europe, and I'd say it was the greatest threat in the United States until about 30 days ago, is that you've had the leaders of the West decide that they should send millions and millions of unvetted foreign migrants into their countries. That is the biggest threat to Europe. And frankly, it remains, by the way, the biggest threat to the United States because, yes, we've got 4 years of President Trump's leadership, but I guarantee you, if the Democrats ever get power again, they're going to try to do it again. We cannot rebuild Western civilization. We cannot rebuild the United States of America or Europe by letting millions and millions of unvetted illegal migrants come into our country. It has to stop. Thank God it stopped here, but it's got to stop there. And a related issue, Mercedes, is you can't just stop it. You have to allow European peoples, and of course the American people too, to raise issues about it.
Right.
You have to allow free speech to debate this stuff. You have to stop doing things to the populations of the world. You've got to give the populations of the world the opportunity to speak up and say, no more of this BS. We want borders. We want sovereignty. We want to be able to speak our own mind in our own country. And I guarantee you, if we don't allow free speech, and of course, the Biden administration, I made this point, Mercedes, the Biden administration did more to destroy free speech, not just in the United States, but also that is the future for our shared civilization.
And I will tell you something really, truly remarkable that's happening at CPAC is, and we had our second CPAC International Summit yesterday, and we have many of these European conservative leaders with us today, where we stand in solidarity because they have an opportunity to basically make Europe great again, make Asia great again, make Latin America great again. And so in essence, I think your message was very well received by many of those conservative leaders across the globe. But what does this mean with the U.S. now that, you know, in giving that speech? What does this mean with the U.S.'s relationship with Europe?
Well, look, obviously, we're going to continue to have important alliances with Europe, but I really do think the strength of those alliances is going to depend on whether we take our societies in the right direction. Think about this. Germany's entire defense is subsidized by the American taxpayer. There are thousands upon thousands of American troops in Germany today. Do you think that the American taxpayer is going to stand for that if you get thrown in jail in Germany for posting a mean tweet? Of course they're not, right? So the point that I try to make to our European friends, and I think that they're our friends, I believe that, I know President Trump does, is that friendship is based on shared values. You do not have shared values if you're jailing people for saying we should close down our border. You don't have shared values if you cancel elections because you don't like the result, and that happened in Romania. You do not have shared values if you're so afraid of your own people that you silence them and shut them up. So let's have shared values. Let's defend democracy. Let's have free expression, not just in the United States, but all over the Western world. That is the path to strong alliances in Europe.
We had Ambassador Rick Riddell with us yesterday. He'll be on the CPAC stage during these conferences. He has like 3 jobs, or 4 or 5.
Yes, he does.
Let me ask you this. Where are we on basically the status of the Russia-Ukraine moving forward in terms of these negotiations in bringing peace to this endless war?
You know, it's early, and I think what President Trump, what makes him such an effective negotiator, I've seen this in private, is that he doesn't take anything off the table. When he walks into negotiation, he says everything is on the table. And of course, that makes the heads explode in the American media because they say, why are you talking to Russia? Well, how are you going to end the war unless you're talking to Russia? You've got to talk to everybody involved in the fighting if you actually want to bring the conflict to a close. And I know the president does. But I'll tell you the goals that animate President Trump's policy. It's really simple. He wants the killing to stop. He wants to bring lasting peace to Europe. He doesn't just want to stop it now and have the war restart a month from now. He wants to bring lasting peace to Europe because the president believes this, and he's absolutely right. Peace is in the interest of Russia. It's in the interest of Ukraine. It's in the interest of Europe. But most importantly, peace is in the interest of the American people, and he's going to fight for it for the remainder of his administration. Wherever war breaks out, he's going to be the president of peace. Now, he, of course, is a very good negotiator, a very good businessman. He recognizes that a lot of these issues are tough. It's going to take a smart statesman to figure this stuff out, but we've got that in the White House, and I really believe that we're on the cusp of peace in Europe for the first time in 3 years because we have leadership from the Oval Office, and we haven't had it in 4 years in this country.
Matt and I mentioned this right when we started the conference. We're honored by the presence of 2 hostages that were freed after the Hamas atrocity, the tragedy that we've seen happen. And we have several of the family members as well who still, they're there. Where their loved ones are still being detained by Hamas. What is your message to these hostage families, these survivors?
Our message is that President Trump loves you. He hasn't forgotten your loved ones, and he's going to fight every single day to bring them home. That is exactly what he's been doing, and that's what he'll keep on doing. I was actually talking with one of my best friends about this a couple of days ago.
Can I be your best friend too?
Yes.
Okay. I think we all want to be your best friend, right? Okay.
But I was talking with him, and he was asking me. He was like, well, I don't understand. Why was Biden unable to do this? And then, like, the minute that Donald Trump won, we started to make progress in bringing the hostages home. And I said, man, it's just a question of leadership. You actually need a president who is willing to pick up the phone and say, you got to bring these people home. No. We're not focused on that crap right now. We're focused on bringing hostages home. And then when the negotiations hit a wall, because they always do, you need a president who picks up the phone and says, cut this crap out, we've got to make progress, and you've got to keep that pace going. It's leadership. It really is. And I saw it behind the scenes. And what the president did is he empowered, in particular, because this was before we were inaugurated. This is before we had our great Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, or any of the great people around us. The president sent his dear friend, and he's become my dear friend, Steve Witkoff, as an emissary of the President of the United States. And he said, Steve, you speak for me, get it done, and if there are problems, pick up the phone and call me. Steve Witkoff, with the president's leadership, got it done, and it's amazing. And of course, we still got work to do. We've got to finish the process, but I really believe the president is as committed to this as any American leader in my lifetime. We're going to keep on fighting for it.
One of the issues that's central to the CPAC community is the issue of pro-life.
Of course.
And what is the administration going to do to defend the unborn, to provide support for those mothers, those fathers that choose life?
Sure. Well, one of the things, of course, the president got done during the first term, and I think that it's why he is accurately called the most pro-life president in American history, is he finally made it possible for the will of the people to speak on the life issue. And that was the Dobbs decision. What that did is it gave the abortion question back to the people. It took it out of the hands of unelected bureaucrats and unelected judges and gave it back to the people. And I think the most important thing that we can do, and as you know, Mercedes, I'm very pro-life, I'm a devout Christian, is that we have got to persuade our fellow Americans, because now we've got the power. We've got the power of persuasion. We've got to persuade our fellow citizens that unborn life is worthy of protecting. It is sacred in the eyes of God, and it should be sacred in the eyes of man too. And we have to pick up the torch and fight for that every single day. And I know you guys are up for the task. I am too. And I think on the administration side, what the president has said, and it's been consistent, it's going to be consistent in the rhetoric and in the policy, is we believe in the Trump administration that babies are good, that families are good, and we want to make it easier for young moms and young dads to choose life, to start families, and to bring new life into the world. That's the whole point of our policy. Now, some of that, of course, is supporting our great crisis pregnancy centers at the moment of these important healthcare decisions, encouraging young women to choose life at that important moment of choice. Some of that is bringing costs down so that young moms and dads don't look to the future and a new baby and say, how can I afford this? And if they're able to actually afford to raise a family, maybe they'll start thinking of babies as the blessings that we all know that they are.
Yeah.
And I think... But I think fundamentally this is going to take a lot of leadership from the president on down, but from every single person in this room. We've got to persuade our fellow citizens to stop thinking about babies as inconveniences to be discarded. We've got to start thinking of them as blessings to cherish, and that's exactly what I promise to do.
So now we're going to get personal. This is going to be so fun. Your faith.
Yep.
Why is it so important to you? What does it mean to you? Tell us why, when you go every single day to work, how faith is a part of who you are.
Well, first is I believe the fundamental tenet of the Christian faith, it's not just a set of good moral principles, though it is that. I think the fundamental tenet of our faith is that the Son of God became man, he died, and then he raised himself from the dead. That is the fundamental tenet of the Christian faith, and I think so much flows from that. And I think one lesson that flows from that is that we shouldn't fear death. Of course, death is a very bad thing, but there are much more terrible things than just losing one's life, and importantly, you could lose one's soul. And I think whether it's fighting for the unborn or fighting for peace and security for our citizens, I want us to be the kind of society where my kids can grow up to be virtuous young people, can be good young Christians, of course, because that's what I'm trying to raise them to be. And that's what our public policy is trying to do. Creating the space where moms and dads can raise their children in their faith to become good young people who believe the things that I do. That is what I'm trying to create, is the space for you, of course, to raise your children as you see fit, but the space for me to raise my kids to be the kind of young people that I think they ought to be. And the other thing that I take from it, Mercedes, is if you look at the long history of the Christian faith, we've been around for about 2,000 years now, give or take a few years, and there have been really dark times in the history of the Christian faith. There have been really good times in the history of the Christian faith. And I just try to remind myself that we put our faith in God above, we put our faith in the grace of God, and we try the best to do His will, and we don't worry so much about whether we're going to have earthly rewards. We worry about whether we're doing right by God Almighty above. That's what I try to do, and that's how I try to run my life in public.
You mentioned raising these children into good people and also into good citizens that
Yes.
can contribute to society and to the world. We had so many young people come out and support Donald Trump
Yes, we did.
and J.D. Vance
And thank you.
this past election. So what is your message? And what is your message to the young men?
You know, I guess my message to young people generally is we're trying to make your life better. And that is the simple thrust of President Trump's policy is we want you to be able to buy a home. We want you to be able to work a good job. We want you to be able to raise your kids, like I said, according to the values that you believe in. And we want you to be able to build a nice life in this country that all of us love. That is what we're trying to do. And, you know, you guys more than anybody, more than me, I'm talking about people under the age of 30 in particular, you guys are going to have to deal with the consequences of good policy or of bad policy for much longer than the rest of us. And I want you guys to think about the future and ask yourself, do you want safe communities? Do you want a prosperous life? Do you want to be able to work a good job? Or do you want that job shipped off to China or somewhere else? We're fighting for you every single day. We want you to help fight for us because we've got to win. Not just the policy battles of the next couple of months. We've got to win the midterm elections in a couple of years. We need you. We recognize that we need you, and we're fighting for you every single day. And I think, you know, you asked me, you know, my message to young men is I think that our culture sends a message to young men that you should suppress every masculine urge. You should try to cast aside your family. You should try to suppress what makes you a young man in the first place. And I think that my message to young men is don't allow this broken culture to send you a message that you're a bad person because you're a man, because you like to tell a joke, because you like to have a beer with your friends, or because you're competitive. It's... Our message, the cultural message, and I think the president's and mine is the exact opposite, but our cultural message is, I think that it wants to turn everybody, whether male or female, into androgynous idiots who think the same, talk the same, and act the same. We actually think God made male and female for a purpose, and we want you guys to thrive as young men and as young women, and we're going to help with our public policy to make it possible to do that. And by the way, that I actually think, Mercedes, this is the thing that President Trump, this is why the media went after him so hard, is because, you know, when I think about, like, what is the essence of masculinity, you could answer this in so many different ways, but when I think about me and my guy friends, we really like to tell jokes to one another. Like, we like to laugh. If you think of all the movies that were really popular.
Are you saying you're pretty funny?
I try to be.
Okay, President Trump, who's funnier? Who's funnier?
President Trump.
All right, there you go.
Let's be honest.
There you go.
He's got the best sense of humor of any American political figure. But I think this is why young men in particular are so you know, they're so inspired by President Trump is because he doesn't allow the media to tell him he can't make a joke or he can't have an original thought. President Trump just says what's on his mind. That's a damn good thing, and it's a good example to set for young men in American culture.
You know, I always tell my 5 daughters, I don't have any sons, but Matt and I, we have 5 beautiful daughters, and I always say, you know, the most important decision you'll ever make is who you marry.
That's right.
Always who you marry. And you made a very important decision in marrying Usha.
I did.
And
I married up.
She is a beautiful second lady, and I want to know, what is the best advice Usha has given you?
Well, one
This is so fun. Okay.
This is going to be very personal. One piece of advice she gave me like a week ago was, you should be nicer on social media. I don't know that I'll take that advice. Some advice is good. Some advice, as you know, can be good, but you don't have to always take it.
You sound like my husband.
The best advice Usha ever gave me, when it comes, I mean, she gave me so many good life advices or pieces of advice, but the best advice she gave me when it came to politics is, don't let them filter you. And in politics, you know, you've got consultants, and you've got media professionals, you've got pollsters, you've got a lot of people who try to tell you what to say or how to behave or, you know, what to do. And Usha just said, just be yourself, be authentic, go out there and say what's actually on your mind, maybe a little nicer from time to time. But I think that's the best advice that she gave me, and that's why we take our kids everywhere, and that's why I'm not afraid to make a joke on social media, even if it's sometimes a dad joke. Forgive me, all of you who don't like dad jokes, but you just got to be yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's President Trump's superpower in American politics, and that's probably the best advice Usha ever gave me, at least on politics.
Okay, last question. What inspires you every day?
Well, I mean, one is my family, right? I mean, I'm blessed to have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and I can't help but see the country through their eyes. And when we were on the campaign in particular, and we would take our kids with us, all of my kids, when we were about to land in some new place, you know, they'd all rush to the window of the plane and they'd look out and they'd say, "Oh, Dad, this looks so cool." Like, you know, the beauty of the Arizona cactuses and Arizona deserts. Or, you know, we'd be in Texas for a fundraiser and they'd be like, "Oh my God, like, look at just all of that open space," right? Or we'd be in North Carolina and say, "Oh, look how beautiful the Green Mountains," right? This idea of these beautiful green mountains of Appalachia, North Carolina. We love North Carolina. And I guess what inspires me is you can't help but be hopeful and energetic and optimistic about this country when you see it through the eyes of a child. So I hope I never lose that perspective, because it does inspire me every day.
Well, Mr. Vice President, you inspire us every day. We are praying for you. We are praying for your family. We are praying for this incredible administration, for, of course, President Donald Trump, and we are honored that you are here with our CPAC family.
And I'm honored to be here.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. I love you guys. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine Back, and I'm so excited to be here. You know, for the last 4 years, I've showed up at CPAC because God sent me there, the greatest God there is in heaven and earth. And we are so blessed. Please stick around and hear what I've got to say, because God needs you. He needs you to participate. He needs you to be on fire like I am. God has a way that he can fix everything. Because as long as you've got him in you, as long as you've given your life to him, you too can participate in this. You know, the first thing that happened is I showed up in Washington, D.C. because God told me to go there. I had no reason, but he gave me a reason immediately. And when I got there, I met two of my greatest friends, Matt and Mercedes Schlapp. Yes, the people that run CPAC, God put in front of me. And I have served God and this organization ever since then. And I'm honored to be called the matriarch of CPAC. CPAC has been such a major influence in my life and all of your lives, whether you know it or not. Not just your visits, not just when you come, but when you participate. You too could participate and go to the CPAC events in places like Hungary and Japan and Australia, Israel. But remember, God needs all of us. You know, 4 years is not going to last forever of Donald Trump. He's going to need all of us to stay powerful, stay in the show, and there's no better way of doing it than through CPAC, being a participant in every way that you can. God loves what they're doing. He has proven that over and over again because he brought you here today. He brought you here to hear this message and know that there is other things for you to do, and God is in the center of all of it. So all of you, step up to the plate, do what I did. Make friends here, make friends everywhere across this country. Reach out, speak your voice, and know that God is with you in everything you do every day, and that we are all at CPAC praying for you daily. I'm so glad I could be here today, even if I'm not there in person. And our studio is there, whether I'm there or not. Proverbs Media Group, you'll find them on Media Row. We want you to hear the truth. Just like the Bible tells the truth, we're going to tell the truth. We do this through so many entities. You can see us on any of the social media accounts, but mainly go to YouTube and look up Proverbs Media Group. Watch our shows. Learn what it's like to actually hear the truth. And we started our show, It's Not About Us, because it's not. It's about God, our Savior. It's about we are here to serve him and each other. Serve your neighbors, serve your friends, do all these things. And we want you to know that one of our latest things is, you know, that crazy iPhone that causes all kinds of trouble? We want you to know, and you'll find cards over there, that 3 to 5 times a day you set an alarm on your phone. Not on, when to get up, but when to remember that God is with you. So that if it goes off in the middle of something stressful, just say, God, help me. If it goes off in a time that's peaceful, say, God, thank you. And talk to him all you can. Have that reminder there, because we all get so busy nowadays that it's easy to forget he is with you in all things. We want you also to remember that, CPAC is an amazing place. It's where I started. It's where you can start. It's where you can put your time in and just show people love. There's so many ways to do it. Our people at our booth are waiting to hear from you and see you. Here, throw me that hat and shirt. Here's the Trump hat. Here's the Proverbs Media Group shirt. And know that we pray for you all the time. We love you. We care about you. And don't forget, you are the most important thing in the world to our Lord and Savior. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, up next, Tales from the Crypto, Bitcoin and the Digital Economy. Please welcome Strategy Executive Chairman and Co-Founder Michael Saylor and CPAC Board Member Christos Marafatsos.
There she is. Good morning, everyone. What about that speech from our Vice President?
and our great Mercedes Schlapp. I am not as good as a moderator as Mercedes. Michael turned to me and said, man, she's good. I go, Mike, I'm not that good. But good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor to be here at CPAC, moderating one of the most critical discussions of our time, the future of Bitcoin, digital assets, and financial freedom. We are witnessing a once-in-a-generation transformation in how people store and transfer wealth and value. And today, I have the privilege of introducing a man who didn't just predict the future of money, he's helping build it. In 2020, as governments printed trillions of dollars, where weakened our US dollar, one CEO made history. Michael Saylor became the first major CEO of a US publicly traded company to transfer his entire balance sheet from cash into Bitcoin. Historic, that's incredible, that's risk. He is the largest single corporate holder of Bitcoin in the world, owning 478,740 Bitcoin, now worth $48 billion. Michael just didn't talk about Bitcoin, he bet on it, he built on it, and he led the way for corporations, investors, and people like me and you to invest and remain sovereign. He remains one of the most influential voices in financial and technological history, proving that Bitcoin isn't just an investment, it's a revolution that America has to dominate. Please join me in welcoming one of the most fearless and financial minds in our future, a champion of digital freedom and a trailblazer, Michael Saylor.
Well, thanks for the intro. I'm really excited to be able to address this group today because I think that Bitcoin represents the most powerful technology force for conservatism in the world. And I don't know that that's fully appreciated, but Satoshi, many years ago, had this vision for sound money and sovereign money via technology, via modern cryptography, modern semiconductors, the modern internet. And that idea of giving economic power to the individual in the face of the overwhelming power of the collective, when you feel like the government's against you, the banking system against you, the currency is against you, big tech is against you, when you're the little guy, when you're struggling for freedom and struggling in the face of overwhelming power, you need some advantage. And Satoshi created this network that's based on two principles. One principle is integrity, and the other principle is sovereignty. The integrity, we all know, is there'll never be more than 21 million Bitcoin, and that's enforced by millions and millions of computers and hundreds of millions of people everywhere in the world that believe it's not okay to lie, cheat, or steal. It's not okay to distort the truth. There is a truth. There is a universal common ledger that no one can tamper with, no one can corrupt, not a nation state, not a company, not a politician. And that idea of a censorship-resistant, unstoppable version of the truth was a first in human history.
It was a first.
And then the second idea is sovereignty. It's like, well, if there is a truth, can you own it, right? So with Bitcoin, the idea is you can own a Bitcoin and you don't have to trust a bank with it. You don't have to trust the city with it. You don't have to leave it in the custody of a big company. You can take self-custody. So we oftentimes say, what do you own? The only thing you own are your memories. Everything else in this world that you own at the pleasure of someone more powerful than you, and they can take it away from you via force. What they can't take away from you is your experience and what's in your head. And the brilliance of Satoshi was, what if we could put all of the money in the world into the heads of the people? What if what you knew was the password to unlock all of your wealth or protect it, and nobody else could take it away from you. And that's a profound shift, because what Satoshi did was gave us a network where hundreds of millions of people can own and control their economic energy in a censorship-resistant, unstoppable fashion. And that was an idea worth nothing for a year, and then it became worth $1 million, and then it became worth $1 billion, and then it became worth 10 billion, and then it became worth 100 billion. And when MicroStrategy, now Strategy, got in the business about 4 years ago, it was worth 150 billion. And today it's worth 2 trillion.
And at that time, you were a software company, and you saw this as an opportunity, a different opportunity.
We were a software company, and we were staring at a quick death or slow death or take a risk. And you know, when the COVID lockdowns took place and the interest rates went to 0, we had to decide, were we going to sell the company, throw in the towel, or could we find a way out? And this is the challenge that 40 million companies in America have, which is, if you're not one of the Magnificent Seven, if you're not Apple or Google or Microsoft, how are you supposed to compete in a world where trillion-dollar companies have all the power, big banks have all the power, big government has the power? And Bitcoin offered us the way out, because if you recapitalize the company on Bitcoin, you're not slave to the bank, you're not slave to the currency, you're not slave to the local politician that tells you what you can do and how you can use your money. Instead of having the central bank take interest rates to 0 and keep them there forever, right? Bitcoin gave us a 60% return every year, because the Bitcoin interest rate is set by a global decentralized system of capital flows. So my company was able to save itself when we switched from Bitcoin, from the US Treasury or the bond to Bitcoin. Our market cap increased from $1 billion to 100 billion. And our enterprise value increased from 600 million to 105 billion. And we went from a $500 million company growing 0% a year, competing against a monopoly, Microsoft, where it's hopeless, to a $50 billion company growing 60% a year that's part of the digital economy. So I feel blessed, and we are very fortunate, but that really motivated me with a mission. And what I realized is Satoshi gave us a way out of our conundrum. Satoshi gave us a strategy that makes a small company big and powerful, that makes the individual more powerful than the state, that turns the power balance between the collective and the individual on its head. And the secret to that is this powerful worldwide network that puts the individual first, that's uncorruptible, that anybody can join, that gives you unfettered, uncensored property rights.
Well, to that point, I had spent the last couple of days preparing for this and had a list of questions for Michael. And about 10 minutes before we sat down on the stage, and he goes, let's talk about why Bitcoin is conservative. Let's talk about why this is your coin and this is your industry. So, Michael, how is Bitcoin conservative? Why should it be important to this audience, the largest conservative conference in the world?
Bitcoin literally represents the conservation of energy in cyberspace. Satoshi implemented a protocol which is inherently conservative. If I send Bitcoin to you, I lose it, you have it. I can't create more. I can't lie about it. The thing that's beautiful about nature is conservation of energy. Conservative is based on natural law. It's based on the idea that if you just make something up which isn't true, you'll be punished. And the Bitcoin network represents that innate integrity and truth. So, You know, if you think about the world today, there's just an inherent force. There's a struggle between capitalism and socialism, between people that believe in freedom and free markets and those that believe in central planning and collectivism. And if I'm a socialist, I want to take away your guns and your money. And Bitcoin is money that they can't take away. Like, what freedom do you have if you have all of your money in a bank that can freeze it? What freedom do you have if you have your money embedded in a currency where someone can print 4x more of it without your approval and debase it to zero? What freedom do you have if you own real estate in a city where the mayor can put rent control on it or expropriate it, or the governor can tax it away from your family? What freedom do you have if all your wealth is in a business where the government can tell you you can't operate, shut down your pipeline, tax your employees, tax your income, regulate your product? And the answer is, you only have conditional freedom until the government changes and they just take away that freedom. And then when they take away your wealth, when they take away your economic power, they're going to starve you to death, and then you've got nothing. So Bitcoin represents putting your economic wealth in cyberspace. It's beyond the reach of the mayor, beyond the reach of the governor, beyond the reach of any nation state, beyond the reach of any other company that would do you harm. It is the first time in the history of the human race that you can bind economic energy tightly to an individual, to a family, to your company, and you don't have to ask permission to have economic wealth, to have money. And you don't have to live in fear that someone gets up on a morning and just takes it all away from you to power you down. And so if I am conservative, I want a family, I want a company, I want freedom. Well, how are you going to pay for it? And if you live in a country like Venezuela and the currency goes to zero, you're going to be begging for food next week. Wouldn't it be great if I could take the wealth of my family and put it into a network that no one can loot, no one can corrupt, and at the end of the day, I don't want to gamble my future. I don't want to take my life savings and gamble in the stock market. I don't want to take my life savings and gamble that the mayor of the city won't just take my property away from me. I actually just want to own the wealth. I want to own my money. And Bitcoin is a way for you to convert your capital into digital capital that will last 1,000 years. Your country will be, your company, your country, or your family will be wealthy for generations to follow. You don't have to live in fear. And when you don't have to live in fear, when you have economic independence, you can actually stretch your time horizon out, and you can build an institution, you can build your family, you can build a life for yourself.
Michael, you talked about several things there. One is wealth, sovereignty, agency, the ability to come in and for someone, a mayor, a city councilman, to take what you have. We've seen that happen from New York to California. A lot of us have been subject to this. And then you also talk about leadership. We have President Trump. We have the greatest leader our nation has ever had. He's compared to George Washington. People love him. We love him. He sees Bitcoin, he sees the digital asset industry as an exceptional opportunity. How can America ensure its dominance moving forward?
You know, this nation became great because of the Louisiana Purchase. We bought a third of the country from Napoleon for a few $1 million. Then we purchased Texas and California from the Mexicans for a few million more. Then we purchased Alaska from the Russians for a few million more. We didn't even know there'd be $1 trillion of mineral rights underneath Alaska when we purchased it. They called it Seward's Folly. But what I'm describing is manifest destiny. If you want to create a great nation, you have to build it on valuable property. You have to know, where is all the money headed? Where is the future? When we bought California, we didn't know there'd be a Hollywood. We didn't know there'd be a Silicon Valley. No one really considered. In 1867, we didn't have a petroleum industry. And so where is the money headed in the future? The money's headed to cyberspace. Bitcoin is property in cyberspace. The manifest destiny of this country is to own cyberspace. And I think that President Trump understands the value of owning scarce, desirable property. If we go to cyberspace and we buy Bitcoin and the nation embraces Bitcoin, then all of the capital in the world, all of the Chinese money, all the Russian money, all the European money, all of the money from the 20th century, the money invested in a Siberian warehouse, the money invested in fill in the blank, anything you could possibly own in Africa, all of that capital is flowing into cyberspace. It's going from physical to digital. It's flowing from the 20th century to the 21st century. The 21st century is going to be a billion AIs thinking a million times a second. And what are they going to be using to move their money around? They're going to use digital money because they can't get a bank account. They can't get a credit card. I have to approve my wire transfers from my bank once a week. It takes about 20 minutes, and they ask me on the phone whether the money should move.
It's a good problem. With 478,740 Bitcoin, Michael.
The computers...
We don't feel too bad, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get it, but my point we've been doing it that way for 50 years. And if you look at the way the digital economy is going to run in the 21st century, it's going to be a billion computers thinking a million times a second, moving assets at the speed of light. Bitcoin represents digital capital. That network is $2 trillion today. It's going to be $20 trillion in 4 to 8 years. It's going to be $200 trillion in 20 years. Then it's going to grow faster than every other asset in the world. It's going to continue to grow. The United States should own it, right?
Is that the conversation? Talk to us about the U.S. Bitcoin reserve. Everyone, and we've heard a couple other coins being yelled out by the crowd, and people want to know, are we going to have a U.S. Bitcoin reserve? And when is that going to happen?
The way to think about Bitcoin is it's the most powerful digital network in the world. It is cyber power. If you want to dominate the next 100 years, just like the last 100 years is based upon dominating sea power, fire power, air power, space power, nuclear power. You want to dominate cyberspace. You want cyber power. It's the unstoppable network that no one can corrupt. And the use of the unstoppable network, among other things, is hundreds of trillions of dollars of capital moving from point A to point B. But the other use of the network is I can send a message which is unstoppable, and I can store information that is unstoppable, and I can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt the authenticity of an instruction or a document. No country, no company, no individual, not a trillion computers can corrupt that message. So if you want to own the future, you want to own cyberspace. How do you own cyberspace? You own Bitcoin, and then you run the Bitcoin networks. You mine Bitcoin, you own Bitcoin. President Trump understands property. He understands the value of Greenland. He understands the value of Alaska. He understands the value of oil rights. He understands drill, baby, drill would be impossible if we didn't own the land, right?
He understands American dominance.
And land is physical property. When I run electricity through semiconductors and I create a wall of encrypted energy, I create digital property. Bitcoin is digital property. You should own it. Your company should own it. Our nation should own it. It is the future.
In your perspective, how soon do you think we're going to be buying Bitcoin and have within our U.S. reserve? at a timeline? You think it's going to be 12 months, 24 months?
I think there's an appreciation of the power of Bitcoin throughout the cabinet, throughout the House, throughout the Senate. There's going to be a political process by which we build consensus with the White House, the Senate, and the cabinet, and find the right way through. But, you know, what I would say on this topic is the U.S. could own 20% of the network like that for free. The dollar would strengthen, the nation would be enriched. And the real promise is if you own 4 to 6 million Bitcoin, you're going to pay off the entire national debt. You're going to neutralize it. We can generate a $50 trillion to $80 trillion benefit to the United States people, to the citizens, to the taxpayers, and we can do it simply by seeing the future. It cost $6 million to buy Alaska. The payoff was $1 trillion. Just like right now, you can literally buy it for a song and dance. That's the opportunity. The risk is that you wouldn't want the Saudis to buy it first, or the Russians, or the Chinese, or the Europeans. And there's only room for one nation state to buy up 20% of the network. And obviously, I think it should be the United States. I think it will be the United States. It's a way for us to enrich ourselves and emerge as a creditor nation in a matter of a decade. It's also a way for us to ensure that we're the economic leaders in cyberspace and the digital economy for the next 100 years. And if we do that, every one of our allies will follow us, and then all of our enemies will end up having to buy into the network once it passes 10 or 20 million a coin, and they will enrich us.
And we saw that just yesterday. President Trump was in Miami, and he was talking about Bitcoin. The Bitcoin reserve is a touchy subject. A lot of people want to know what other coins within the digital asset industry are going to be involved. The U.S. does not just hold just gold and oil within our reserve. It holds up to 27 other trace minerals. And so we're completely diversified. Do you see room for another digital asset to be included in the Bitcoin reserve or the U.S. financial reserve system?
I think the key thing to keep in mind right now is that Bitcoin is a commodity. It is an asset without an issuer. There is no company, no individual, no country, no entity that can corrupt it. It has reached escape velocity. It has gotten to the point where it is basically a freedom virus, a truth virus, a monetary virus. It has been embraced by $1 trillion of smart money. That is, $1 trillion of real money has been invested in the network. It is 99% of the digital power on Earth. It's fairly unstoppable. And so if you're going to capitalize a company or a country, you want to capitalize it on property or a commodity or a network which is beyond the point where anybody could change the nature of it. And so that makes Bitcoin the most certain thing in the digital universe.
And when you talk about certainty, and when you talk about truth, over the last 4 years, we've experienced as a culture travesty. We haven't been able to speak. We've been censored. How does Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin to you? What do you see that others don't? And how can conservatives capitalize on the opportunity to take advantage and make sure that America is dominating our future, that we have the economic freedoms, that our children and our families in America will stay at the front runner of this industry?
What I would say to everybody in this room is if you want freedom, if you want liberty, if you want to live your finest life, you're going to need economic power. You need physical power, you need political power, but you need economic power. Bitcoin represents economic armor. When you put on the suit of armor, then no mayor, no government, no collectivist, no socialist can debank you. They can't take your money away. They can't impoverish you. Just like a gun is a deterrent, Bitcoin is a deterrent, because if you have wealth in Bitcoin, you have the option to move it to any jurisdiction, and you can keep it, and no one can take it away from you via force of violence, no matter where you are on Earth. And so Satoshi gave us an opportunity. I hope I intrigue all of you with the opportunity and you go do the research and determine for yourself how you benefit from it. But I just leave you with the thought that Bitcoin is economic armor.
You have, Michael. Thank you. God willing, we have as much Bitcoin as Michael one day. This is a defining moment for digital assets. It's a defining moment for our country. We thank all of you. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. CPAC is going to be at the front of the digital asset industry. We see Bitcoin and the entire industry as a significant resource for our country and our people. Thank you, everyone. God bless America.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Republicans for Weaponization Control. Please welcome Chairman of the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability, Representative James Comer, Counselor to the President Donald J. Trump, Alina Habba, and your host, editor of townhall.com, Katie Pavlich.
All right, y'all. Good morning, CPAC. How's everyone doing? Well, it's a wonderful time to be in D.C. It is my, I think, 16th CPAC. It is Alina Habba's first CPAC. Congressman Comer, how many for you? Twice. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So we are here this morning to talk to you about a number of things, but most importantly, one of the most pressing issues of our time, and that is the weaponization of the federal government against its citizens. And we have no one better here today to talk about this than these two. Alina, let's start with you. You've gone from working for President Donald Trump as his attorney with the lawfare as a private citizen to now being in the White House and seeing how the government is still being used to thwart his agenda through the courts. So maybe just take us through a journey a little bit of your experience and maybe some of the differences.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I mean, I always say I'm happy to not be outside a courtroom for once and have President Trump where he was supposed to be, which is in that Oval Office. So thank God for that. But I think when I came to, and yeah, my journey's been a strange one for an attorney, right? I always say this, you should not know who somebody's lawyer is. That should not happen in this country. And unfortunately, but fortunately for us, because we're going to fix it now, they really took a misstep in their calculations when they used courtrooms, AGs, and DAs to try and take down political opponents. When we won the election in the most sweeping mandate on November 5th, I thought that was over. Mm-hmm. I really did. Every state, and I think it was a lot because of what they did with lawfare. And then we got to the White House, and we started doing exactly what America voted for us to do. Cleaning up, getting rid of bureaucrats that are making money on taxpayer dollars, doing all the things we promised, and then again came the lawfare. And I feel like I'm right at home, so.
Well, welcome to Washington. We're
unfortunately, the desperation is something that I thought would end when the American people spoke so loudly on November 5th, but they have not. They've just become more desperate, and now we've got them singing songs in New York and Chuck Schumer's holding beer cans. And
yeah, it's quite the scene. They're a little rudderless right now, that's for sure.
So Congressman Comer, you are the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, one of the most important committees that we have on Capitol Hill. And you've been working for years to expose the way that the Biden administration was attacking not just Donald Trump, but also the American people who support him. And if you look at what's been happening really starting under Barack Obama, when they used the IRS to go after conservatives, this is not something that it just started. It's been embedded inside the federal government by the left. So now that you've been through the process of doing oversight with the Biden administration, how are you now working in the Trump administration with a new government and Republican control to really try and change some of these things so that Americans aren't being punished for having certain political views?
Well, for one thing, I've had conversations with Billy Long, the new IRS commissioner, as well as Kash Patel, who hopefully in a matter of a couple hours will be the next FBI director. Our staff's communicated with Bondi's staff, and we've given them specific instances of where bureaucrats have abused their power. I think a lot of times that these bureaucrats, they do things, and even when they get caught, nothing ever happens. And what we want to do, and what our committee wants to work with the Trump administration on, is holding these deep state bureaucrats accountable. At the very least, they lose their job. Hopefully they get drug in for depositions. But at the end of the day, we've never seen a more weaponized federal government. It's not just the judiciary, it's the entire federal government. It's the IRS, it's the FBI, the CIA. We've got other agencies, the EPA, I would argue. They've been weaponized, and all the people that Trump put in office are disruptors. That's why I strongly support him. And at the end of the day, he's going to get every one of his nominees confirmed. So we're going to work with them. Jim Jordan's committee is going to work with them. We want to get rid of these bureaucrats and allow Trump to pass his agenda that the American people gave him a mandate to pass.
Yes. So during the election, one of the big slogans from the left was, we have to do this for the sake of democracy. And it's becoming more and more apparent as the Trump administration gets underway with President Trump's direction, that it was really about protecting the bureaucracy.
Right.
So, Alina, the president has signed more executive orders than any president in history in his first first month in office. Today is the anniversary, or the month anniversary, right, of since January 20th, since the new administration took office and was sworn in. But you have to, he can sign these executive orders, but he has to have help from the federal government and from Capitol Hill to actually implement them. Yeah. And now you're also seeing a number of judges trying to get involved to stop his use of executive authority. Can you talk about the judges continuing their lawfare and whether they actually have standing when it comes to blunting some of these orders and saying he doesn't have the power in the executive branch to do what he's doing?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, it's a lot like what I spoke about before. This is desperate times for them. And I'll say this, I think that if you are going to fix a car and you don't look under the hood, how can you fix it? So what we're doing is taking a good hard look under the hood of where the money was spent, how it was spent, and their attacks, for instance, on Elon, we were discussing this. It's so baseless. It's so ridiculous. The fact that they're upset, for instance, yesterday, Governor Hochul in New York, that she's gonna fight our administration tooth and nail for stopping congestion pricing. Congestion pricing in New York is ruining tourism. It's stopping people that work there from driving to work. Their subways are not safe. These people are caring more about their next election. They care more about their face on TV and their politics than they do the people they're supposed to represent, the constituents that voted for them to do the work. Unfortunately, they've taken that to courts. And we've seen it, we've won, we always win, we keep winning. I mean, even Chutkan said it. Look, if they had it their way, our guy would be in jail right now, and that didn't happen. And instead, we won in the most profound way. The American people are happy with what we're doing. And the amount of executive orders that we are pummeling on them is because we have that much work to do. We have to correct 4 years very quickly. Very quickly, and we are all committed to win, and we're going to keep winning.
Congressman, you want to weigh in on the role that Capitol Hill has, especially with Republican control in Washington now, to make sure that these executive orders are implemented in a way?
right. I have a bill in the House. Mike Lee has the bill in the Senate. We're going to do everything we can to pass that legislation to expedite these executive orders and to put them into law. So whenever the next president comes around, they can't change them by executive orders, because what Trump's doing is what's best for America. It's common sense. He's restored common sense back to Washington, D.C. He's getting the government and the bureaucrats out of the way of the private sector, and we've got to make sure that becomes the law of the land. And I think the support's there in Congress. There were a few members of Congress on the Republican side in the House and the Senate that stuck their toe in the water to try to defy the president, to try to obstruct the president.
Rhinos.
Hey, well, I think they're on the team now. I think they got the message from their constituents back home. They listened to their people when they went home, and they're on the Trump train now, and hopefully we can drain the swamp and make America great again.
So everybody knows that Elon Musk has been leading his team of Doge and rampaging through a number of federal agencies in Washington, D.C., which we are loving because there's so much waste, fraud, and abuse. But as we continue to see more of what they're uncovering, yes, of course, we see these silly pet projects like Sesame Street in Iraq, for example. But we're also starting to see a massive issue of actual corruption that has occurred. For example, it was reported, I believe this morning by the Free Beacon, that Stacey Abrams, who is, Georgia's darling, ran for governor twice. She was involved in a lot of voter initiatives there, got a $2 billion grant from the Environmental Protection Agency after only managing $100 at a nonprofit that she started.
Yeah, it's the NGOs.
Right. So, Congressman, talk about what the Oversight Committee is doing with these new cabinet members like Lee Zeldin, for example, at the EPA to really root out this corruption and this infrastructure the left has built in D.C. to really push their political agenda on the entire country.
We're going to work with the administration. When they identify something that they believe is fraudulent, we will follow through with investigation, with subpoena powers, follow the money. That's what we did in the Biden investigation. We got the bank records. A lot of people say, well, go after the tax records. Let me, as someone that's been involved in banking, tax records don't always tell the true picture. The bank records don't lie. And one of the things that we're working on, we go through a thing called the suspicious activity reports where banks identify fraudulent behavior. Banks usually catch when something suspicious happens. If there's an account that had a $100 balance, which is probably the minimum to open an account, and then all of a sudden they get a multi-million-dollar deposit out of the blue, that raises a red flag. And the banks report that to Treasury. So that's where we're going to be following the money. We're doing this now with Act Blue. And I think we're going to have some very interesting information to come out very soon on Act Blue. But we're having a hearing on March 5th with the sanctuary city mayors. We're bringing in the mayors of New York, who's not a bad guy, the mayors of New York, Boston, Denver, and
California.
And Philadelphia. And we're bringing them in. And these, other than the New York mayor, they have tried to obstruct what Tom Homan's doing and obstruct the deportation efforts. So we're going to let them explain that to the American people. But one question we have is, who's been paying for this? And I believe you're going to see there are a lot of government pots of money that have been funneling through these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations. And that's what we want to identify. Musk is all over that, Doge is all over that, and Congress is going to be all over that. And hopefully we can show the American people how abusive the Democrats and their allies in the deep state bureaucracies have been with their tax dollars. They have funneled this mass implosion of illegal immigrants into our country. They've housed them, they've provided free health care, and at the end of the day, I think you're going to see a lot of tax dollars were laundered into programs like this.
Sounds a lot like money laundering
Absolutely.
to me. So, Alina, when it comes to these NGOs, there's been a lot of lawsuits that are filed by leftist groups to try and get judges involved in stopping the taking away of the funding, or even giving Doge and Elon Musk and his team, who's a special government employee, much like Anita Dunn was under Joe Biden and others in previous administrations, to keep that kind of funding. But it does seem like there is a lot of corruption, not just maybe something that got lost in terms of going to the wrong place.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's very clear. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. When you have a line item of trillions of dollars that does not get traced to anyone or anything but entities that are run by family members of bureaucrats, that's a problem. You don't have to be a lawyer to know that ain't good. Yeah. And the end of the day, look, even yesterday, they tried to file these restraining orders. There was a bunch of individuals that said, oh, we're being hurt by this, and it was denied. And that was actually by a very liberal judge in D.C. Who sat on a lot of the January 6th issues for President Trump and other people. Look, at the end of, this is what I can say. We have been, I think there's 70 lawsuits that have been filed, and I was speaking to Elon, and I said, you should put in Times Square a ticker. It'll say on the top how much money you're saving, and then on the bottom, we're gonna put one about how many lawsuits get filed. One will go up, one will go down very quickly. But they do that when we're winning and when we're hitting them where it hurts. So desperate times call for desperate measures. You see all these AGs and DAs trying to come in, you see individuals, but they're not winning. And the only people that are winning right now are American people.
Right. The taxpayer.
We are winning.
And it happens to be tax season, so everybody's filing their taxes, going, if I don't pay the correct amount or miss a couple cents, they'll threaten to throw me in prison. And now's a great time.
Well, don't worry, we're firing a bunch of the IRS today, so don't worry.
Yes, indeed.
That's great.
But that was the stuff that they did, and America didn't like it. Yeah. You're funneling people to audit and hurt the American people. Why don't we audit the people that are hurting us?
Exactly.
It's not supposed to go the other way. We're not supposed to hurt each other.
Yeah.
And that's really the mission, and President Trump said just yesterday, I was with him and he was speaking at an economic forum, and he said, look, we hope to take 20% of what Doge has recovered, that is billions and billions of dollars, and put that money back to the American people who were hurt by the last administration, who can't buy eggs because they went off and killed all the chickens. But it's just ridiculous. Yeah. And we have to get back to common sense.
So Congressman, how can Republicans on Capitol Hill with their slim majority work to codify these Doge cuts into law? Because you keep hearing people saying, well, Congress has to decide because they hold the purse strings. So now you guys have lots of examples inside a lot of these agencies about where these things that have been approved through Congress are going. How do you make sure it's not just, we see it, it's a problem, but we're going to keep going?
The first step's to pass my bill and Mike Lee's bill that expedites this and will allow Congress to codify all the executive orders. Secondly, we've got to follow this up with a budget, with President Trump's budget proposal. We've got to cut spending. We've got to ensure that the tax cuts are renewed. This budget reconciliation bill is huge, and the reason this needs to be a very large bill is because this is the only vehicle that you can pass through the Senate that only takes 51 votes. If we have to depend on Democrats, we might get Fetterman, and that's it. We're still going to be 6 votes short.
Still a long shot.
Yeah, that's a long shot. I wouldn't want to hold my breath on that. But we've got to do it on this reconciliation bill. We've got to renew the tax cuts. We've got to put in the tax cuts that President Trump promised, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and put this whole agenda in and cut the bureaucracy and watch America grow. Watch this country take off. Once you get the government off the backs of the private sector, the entrepreneurial spirit in America will flourish. Americans will prosper, and I think Americans will start to regain a little confidence in their government again, all because of President Trump's mandate and because of the work that everyone in this room did to get President Trump elected.
And deregulation, of course, is a big one. The president has promised for every new regulation, they will eliminate 10 of them. We only have a few minutes left. Alina, you're new to Washington, D.C., new to the world of politics. Final thoughts about the next 4 years here and your new gig?
First of all, it's so exciting. I never thought I would live in the swamp that I hit on TV every day, but here we are. And I knew he was going to win. I wasn't sure if I was going to come, but I'm glad I did. I mean, it is such a blessing to be in the West Wing with the greatest president that I've ever seen in my lifetime. In the past, I mean, it is the greatest joy. And having been there with him through the fight to get here, I think is why we fight so hard. I go to work every day. It is a blessing. I fight for the American people every day now. And I had been started fighting for President Trump, but now it's for all of you. And it's an honor. I mean, I've gotten to do things like child trafficking issues, and I'm speaking to the Middle East. And you have a platform to help not just America be strong, but help the world be peaceful and great. And it's really America's strength that runs that. And I'm excited. It's been a real blessing, and God's given me a real chance to do some change with President Trump. I'm excited.
Congressman Comer, what's next? I know that you guys have a lot. You mentioned the Sanctuary City hearing on March 5th. People can tune in for that. But final thoughts from you about where we're going here as Republicans control the government.
Well, we've got to stick together. I'm seeing more coordination between the House and the Senate than I've seen in the 8 years that I've been in Congress. This is because we have a strong president. We have a strong president that's put in disruptors. The members of Congress that don't like that love the status quo, they went back home during Christmas break. They went back home after the first weekend when Trump started making his proposals and putting his people in place, and they heard from their constituents. And the American people support President Trump's agenda. And I think Congress understands that. I think even the members that we sometimes get frustrated with in the House and the Senate, I think everybody's on board. The president's popular, and the people have delivered a message. So hopefully we're going to be able to pass his agenda. And I think that the savings that DOGE is finding, it's just ironic that the Democrats are exposing their true colors. They are obsessed with Elon Musk. They have lost their mind over Elon Musk. And that is the hill they've chosen to die on, to protect the bureaucracy when the Republicans, being led by President Trump, want to end the bureaucracy. So I think we're going to get a lot done, and it's all because of President Trump.
Yeah, they're destroying their infrastructure, and they're very afraid about what their political future looks like. Thank you both so much for sharing your insights today. We will be watching all of it. CPAC, have a wonderful weekend, and thank you for coming.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.
Every institution today is under attack. The home, the church, the government. And many people are asking, what is the truth? Jesus Christ claimed to be ultimate truth. Are you willing to face the truth?
Do you think the MKUltra project ever actually ended?
The Central Intelligence Agency is actively involved in mind manipulation.
We all answer to one God and one Savior, and He's there to change your life for the better.
Freedom, sovereignty, prosperity. The Patriots for Europe Foundation is on a mission to make Europe great again. Globalist elites have led Europe into a dead-end street. Violent crime has surged because of mass immigration. The Green Deal has put the future of the European economy at risk. Fake NGOs and the massive bureaucracy in Brussels are interfering in our democracies. Patriots must take action. We bring analysis. We organize debates. We build the network of patriots to challenge the woke narrative head on. Patriots for Europe Foundation.
Hey, we have a great group of sponsors down at CPAC Central. Make sure you go down there, get all the merchandise you need, see all the companies that are fighting the woke crap in the country, hear from our breakout panelists and speakers, hear Steve Bannon, hear everything that's important at CPAC. Get down to CPAC Central today.
Before the cabinet room, you saw Donald Trump's next cabinet make waves at CPAC.
actually started quite a while ago in CPAC, and I enjoyed it so much that I came back for a second one, then a third, then I said, what the hell, let's run for president. Matt said, it's like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. He says, you should run for politics. He's the one who said, you should run.
For the presidency of the United States.
It is my honor to introduce to CPAC 2017 our president, Donald Trump.
First of all, I want to thank Matt Schlapp and his very, very incredible wife and boss, Mercedes, who have been fantastic friends and supporters, and so great when I watch them on television defending me. Nobody has a chance. I love this place. Love you people. You never stop fighting for America, and I will never, ever stop fighting for you. We know that there are still more records to be shattered, new summits to be scaled, more triumphs to be realized, and more amazing history just waiting to be written. The American adventure has only just begun. God bless America, and we will see you next year. Thank you very much. You never stop fighting for America, and I will never, ever stop fighting for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Liz Truss.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's fantastic to be back in America. And it's fantastic to be back at CPAC for the second year in a row. But last year, there was a dark cloud hanging over this conference. It was called Joe Biden. And this year, we are now under the leadership of President Donald Trump. This is truly the golden age of America. But I'm sad to report that Britain is in the dark age. We have a socialist government, commissars ruling over us, who are leading our country in a terrible direction. But what I want to say today is they are not the only problem. The current establishment stooges in Whitehall and Westminster are only the latest iteration of Britain going wrong for the past few decades. Because let's be honest, Britain isn't working. The British system is deeply rotten. Britain is becoming a failed state. We've got people who are being arrested and locked up for posting on X and Facebook. We've seen tens of thousands of girls as young as 12 raped, tortured, and even killed by Pakistani grooming gangs. And yet many of those perpetrators have not been brought to justice. In fact, those crimes have been covered up, and we know that the authorities colluded. We know there was police collusion, and we know there was collusion from the local council. We have a massive problem with illegal immigration, but yet we can't even deport people who are criminals from our country because of human rights. One example was an immigrant from the Democratic Republic of Congo who had sexually abused his own stepdaughter. But he was allowed to stay in Britain on the basis of the right to family life. How disgusting. A criminal from Albania was allowed to stay in Britain because his son didn't like the kind of chicken nuggets they sell abroad, and I'm not joking you there. But it's not just a problem we have with mass migration and illegal immigration. We've also got a problem with our energy in Britain. So in Britain, fracking has been banned. I was the only Prime Minister who allowed fracking. Sadly, I wasn't in office long enough to actually make it happen. We have net zero policies that have decimated our oil and gas industry. The net result is we have the highest energy prices in the developed world. And in Britain, we've just seen the last steel plant close down last year. We cannot produce our own steel anymore. We have an economic orthodoxy, a Bank of England that has printed vast amounts of money. They've created rampant inflation. They've wasted billions of taxpayer pounds. If they weren't the government, it would be called a heist. Yet in none of these cases, have any of these people, any of these authorities been held to account for the fact they have completely failed. And we're in a situation where Britain is almost bankrupt, morally, socially, and economically. And I think people in this room might want to know, how on earth has this happened? This is the country that invented parliamentary democracy. It's the country of the Magna Carta. It's the country of the Bill of Rights. We protected freedom of the press back in 1695, almost 100 years before the First Amendment. How on earth can the country of Adam Smith and the Industrial Revolution be deindustrializing? It doesn't make any sense. And the answer is that everything that made Britain great is being destroyed by an establishment that hates Britain and hates the West. Like in most of Europe, our universities, our institutions, and our corporations have been taken over by anti-West ideology. Islamism, green extremism, anti-capitalism, wokery, transgenderism, you name it, they've adopted it. And what we've seen is a massive failure of leaders in Europe to push back against this, because this is not something the population wanted. This is not something the people in Britain or Europe voted for. This is something that was imposed from above. And what happened is that democratically elected politicians handed vast amounts of power over to the unelected and the unaccountable. In Britain, Tony Blair in particular trashed centuries of liberty by creating a tyranny of technocrats. He created an unaccountable Supreme Court, which had never existed in Britain before. He created a much deeper and powerful state that is not held to account. He also handed vast powers over to an alphabet soup of international bodies, the World Health Organization, the United Nations, the ECHR, all of whom nobody could vote in and nobody could vote out. And all of those bodies, as you've seen in the United States of America, have been captured by the same anti-West ideology. But what I find really incredible, really, really incredible, is it wasn't just China and Iran and Russia that were funding these NGOs, funding these anti-West groups. It was actually the United States of America under President Joe Biden through USAID. Now, did you know that American taxpayer dollars was funding the BBC? Did you know that they were funding the Tony Blair Institute? Did you know that they were funding Rory Stewart's wife? It's incredible. We thought you were our friends, but you were actually, American taxpayers were funding this anti-West ideology. And the problem is, when the people in Britain voted for something different, when they tried to change the government, when they tried to change the system in 2016, in 2019, and in 2024, they found the same people were still in power. The bureaucracy had not changed. And it's no surprise that young people are losing their faith in democracy because they don't believe it can change things. And amazingly, during all of this, many so-called conservatives went along with the ideology. They were busy hugging Greta Thunberg. They were putting up taxes. I'm not joking about that. They were putting up taxes. They were increasing immigration. They were pursuing transgender ideology. And it's no wonder that the Conservative Party had its worst defeat since 1834. Patriotic Brits have had enough. They've had enough. And we look across the Atlantic with envy. We see President Trump in the Oval Office signing off executive orders, and we want some of that in Britain. We want drill, baby, drill. We want men banned from women's bathrooms and women's sports. We want illegal immigrants deported. We want taxes to be cut. We want a Trump revolution in Britain. We want to flood the zone. We want Elon and his nerd army of muskrats examining the British deep state. Ladies and gentlemen, we missed the first American Revolution in 1776. In fact, it was actually a revolution against us. But we want to be part of the Second American Revolution. We want to dismantle the British deep state, which is older and more entrenched than the American one. We need a great restoration bill to repeal all of the terrible Blair laws, the Equality Act, the Climate Change Act, the Human Rights Act, the Constitutional Reform Act. We need to eradicate judicial activism in Britain and restore parliamentary sovereignty. We want our government run by the executive, not by the bureaucracy. But most of all, what we need is we need to restore free speech. This is the lifeblood of our democracy. And J.D. Vance is right. Vice President Vance is right. Free speech is in retreat in Britain and in Europe. To Europe's governments, particularly Britain, they see George Orwell's 1984 as an instruction manual. Look at the evidence. A British citizen was arrested for praying outside an abortion clinic. We have German prosecutors saying that if you insult somebody, you could be arrested. We had Alison Pearson, a British journalist, visited at her home by the police because of a tweet that she'd posted a year ago and since deleted. I want the police to be policing real crimes, not thought crimes. But not only this, we have a supine legacy media that pay lip service to free speech, but have suppressed stories and distorted stories. The BBC were found to have violated their editorial guidelines 1,500 times in the 4 months after the appalling atrocities of October the 7th. They were found to have been downplaying Hamas terrorism and promoting the idea that Israel was the aggressor. This is our state broadcaster, funded by the taxpayer. The mainstream media have failed to report on the grooming scandal, and they failed to hold the deep state to account. And much of the reason for that is the deep state are the people giving them all their information, all their leaks, all their funding, all of their material. and they're frightened of the media regulator, Ofcom. We have seen what independent media has done for the United States, and we want some of that. That's why we are going to be establishing a new free speech media network in conjunction with our American allies, including the great people here at CPAC. It will be uncensorable and uncancelable. It will take on the Britain-bashing corporation, which is what we call the BBC. It will take on Starmer and his socialists, and it will take on the censors of Germany. Because it's only by telling people the truth, in the United Kingdom, in Europe, in the Anglosphere, in America, that we will turn our backs on the war's West against itself. All of the people here are working to make America great again. I believe that we can make Britain great again. I believe that we can make Europe great again. And I believe that together, we can make the West great again. Thank you. Thank you.
From CPAC, Brazil, member of the Brazil Chamber of Deputies, Eduardo Bolsonaro.
E aí, pessoal? Bom? Hello, good afternoon. Hi there. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you. I think we have some Bolsonaro supporters here. The great Brazilian community. This is a little bit weird. I'm not used with talking with the teleprompter, but I'm very happy to be here. Good afternoon, CPAC. How are you doing? It's great to be here in the land of the free and the home of the brave. I know many of you are well aware of the risks posed by unelected judges interfering with the policies of a duly elected president. Even we have all heard Elon Musk call it out. We've all heard Vice President J.D. Vance sound the alarm. And of course, we've all heard President Trump repeatedly warn that judicial overreach threatens not just his presidency, but the very foundation of the American democracy. Well, I come from the future, and I know exactly how this story can end. Okay, maybe not the future, but I come from Brazil, which is not that different, as my country has become a laboratory for censorship and judicial authoritarianism. Since 2019, it's been used as a testing ground for the judicial weaponization against conservative, libertarians, and Christians, always under the noble pretense of protecting democracy, fighting misinformation, and stopping extremism, while in reality, silencing dissidents, controlling narratives, and criminalizing opposition. We continue to face the dire consequences of this experiment every day. Just 3 days ago, my father, former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, was formally charged by the Attorney General of the current socialist government with allegedly orchestrating a coup, a Disneyland coup d'etat, as some might call it, without weapons, without a plan, and while he wasn't even in Brazilian territory, but in Orlando, probably debated strategy with Goofy and taking national security advices from Mickey Mouse, maybe. It's really the Disneyland coup d'etat. There is no other word to talk about it. This baseless accusation, entirely devoid of evidence, is nothing more than a tool to neutralize political opposition. It mirrors the same tactics used against the opposition in Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. Yet in Brazil is perceived differently on the global stage because while its situation is in some ways even worse, the persecution is not spearheaded by the executive branch, but by the judiciary. And that makes it all the more dangerous. We are not talking about a dictatorship in the traditional sense. We are talking about a place where tyrants issue decrees and suppress opposition openly. No. In Brazil, the judicial system has been weaponized, creating an illusion of legality while systematically dismantling democracy from within. And guess who helped found this experiment? Right? Agencies like USAID and NED, institutions supposedly dedicated for promoting democracy, but in reality, channeling resources into censorship, judicial overreach, and political persecution in my country. Let me introduce to you a man named Alexandre de Moraes. He is not an elected official. He is a Supreme Court justice who has given himself unchecked power to decide who can speak, who can run for office, and even who can go to the prison. Under his watch, Brazil has become a country where social media platforms are forced to silence opposition voices or face billions in fines. Judges and bureaucrats, not the people, decide who is fit to run for office. Congressmen like Daniel Silveira are thrown into jail for so-called opinion crimes, receiving an outrageous sentence of 8 years and 9 months behind bars, simply for exposing his views in a video, a punishment more fitting of a totalitarian regime than a democracy. And, as I said, even the former president, Jair Bolsonaro, is at risk of being arrested on the same kind of bogus charges used against opposition leaders in Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. But it doesn't stop there. The judicial system has become an instrument for persecution at every level. Political parties that challenge the status quo are harassed and investigated, and some of their candidates are banned from competing fairly in elections. Independent journalists face exile or worse, imprisonment for exposing government corruption or criticizing the judiciary. Ordinary citizens who dare to express dissenting opinions on social media find themselves banned, fined, or even arrested. This is not democracy. This is a judicial overreach. This is lawfare. And this is what happens when courts are turned into political weapons against the will of the people. Why is it happening? Because Jair Bolsonaro currently leads all major polls outside the margin of error and is the only candidate capable of defeating the left in the 2026 election. If he is kept out of the race, Brazil will fall completely under China's influence. There is no doubt about that, and Brazil cannot be overlooked. With over 200 million people, the largest economy in Latin America, and the land mass nearly the size of the United States, its geopolitical and economic importance is undeniable. China recognized this and is actively working to pull Brazil deeper into its sphere of influence. And while you might think, this is just a Brazilian problem, it's not. This has many ramifications and has already spilled over into the United States. Here are 3 examples that should concern every American citizen. Number 1, Jason Miller's detention in 2021. An American citizen, advisor to President Trump, was detained in Brazil under politically motivated orders. His crime? Attending CPAC Brazil and supporting free speech. Number 2, Elon Musk's persecution. He was added to an illegal fake news investigation. That's right. Elon Musk is under investigation in Brazil. You should be, I don't know, maybe scared with him if he go around here, if he come around here. Threatened with billion-dollar fines and saw his company X banned in Brazil, all because he refused to comply with government censorship demands. The deep state scandal at CBP involving a Brazilian national, number 3. Brazilian authorities, in collusion with American bureaucrats, manipulated U.S. immigration records to fabricate justification for the unlawful imprisonment of Felipe Martins, a former national security advisor to my father. He was subjected to solitary confinement, psychological coercion, and inhuman treatment in an attempt to extract statements that could be used to incriminate President Bolsonaro. So, think about it. If they can detain and silence American citizens, if they can control a country as large as Brazil, if they can manipulate official U.S. government's records to imprison a political opponent abroad, what else they can do? What stops them from doing the same to help terrorists, drug cartels, or transnational criminals? And more importantly, if they could do all of this outside of the United States, what makes you think they wouldn't try to replicate it within? This has gone too far. And you, the American people, must pay attention, because what happened in Brazil is being used as a blueprint for judicial tyranny elsewhere, including right here in the United States. Ironically, as I said before, this experiment was partially funded by your taxpayer dollars, which means they will soon come back. They will come to recover that investment. But instead of teaching leftist judges how to destroy Trump, let it serve as a warning for the American people. Freedom is fragile. And once you let unelected judges dictate your democracy, it's only a matter of time before we wake up in a country where free speech, free elections, and even freedom itself are just distant memories. Brazil was a test. Now, thank you. I told you that you have Bolsonaro supporters here. Now they are applying the same formula elsewhere, including here in the United States, and we need to fight back, just as President Trump is doing through his legal team and in partnership with Rumble by filing a lawsuit against Alexandre de Moraes for censoring and sanctioning American businesses and citizens. This legal battle will set a crucial precedent not just for Brazil, but for the future of the free speech and democracy in the United States as well. The globalist playbook is in full effect. If you don't fight back now, you will be the next. Learn from Brazil before it's too late. Thank you all, my friends. This is my message. Pray for my father. Pray for the Brazilians that are in prison now, our January 8th guys. We are asking for amnesty in the Congress, and we hope receive a lot of support from you outside of Brazil, because you know how it means. God bless America. God bless Brazil. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Leo Zaki.
CPAC. My name is Leo Zaki, and I'm the host of the international radio show America Matters on the Salem Network and the Answer Network. I was vice president of Zaki Farms, my family's poultry company, and a board member of the California Poultry Federation for 10 years. 120 years ago, my family legally immigrated to California, where my great-grandfather started what became Zaki Farms. Zaki Farms was a vertically integrated business and the largest poultry company on the West Coast, largest organic turkey producer in the nation, and the largest privately owned employer in California. After 90 years, we were forced to close our doors and put thousands of people out of work because of elected officials in California who hate private business. They raised the anti-competitive minimum wage and overregulated the entire industry until it was impossible to exist. Now, a lot of smart people will tell you this is just mismanagement, just waste, just incompetence. But let's be real for a second. This is not incompetence. This is a deliberate strategy to destroy small businesses and the middle class. California isn't run by the people anymore. It's run by a political cartel, by a handful of ruling families and their cronies who will not stop unless we drive them out. Many of you, especially the younger ones in the audience, might not even know this, but California used to be a red state, a strong conservative state. And here's what they don't want you to know. California still has more conservatives than any other state. That's more than Texas, more than Florida. So how do the radicals stay in power? They built a one-party dictatorship, and they call it a supermajority. And they did this by running Democrats, but calling them Republicans. These rhinos stole the vote from the people by making IDs for voting illegal, by inflating the census, gerrymandering, ballot harvesting, and removing all oversight that was in place to ensure election integrity. I'm no detective, but even a dummy can smell voter fraud when the state with the most conservatives somehow magically votes blue every year. We are blessed to have Donald Trump as our president. We truly are. But all that means is that we have a few more years and a fighting chance to clean out the gangsters who are plundering our beautiful nation. The fight continues, and we must win this battle. And this battle is in California. We can turn California red again. It's responsible for some of the worst legislators in the nation and destabilizing our republic with anti-American policies. If it happened here, it can and will happen in your state too. But that's why you're here, to see conservative values defended against the psychotic enemies of our republic with their BS woke Agenda 21 and 15-minute cities. Every day, the new Department of Government Efficiency exposes more of their lunacy and disgusting waste. California needs its own DOGE and a proper purchasing department to manage its spending habit with full transparency. Transparency in our government is mandatory to keep out the bad guys. California is over $3.2 trillion in debt. And thanks to DOGE, we will soon know some of the insanity these maniacs have been wasting our money on.